Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Vampire Counts, and I'm going to be facing off against Durthu and the Wood Elves. So it's going to be a good time for all. And again, I just wanted to, before I start, say I've been playing, maybe 4 or 5 games in a row as the Vampire Counts, and they are just absurdly powerful. Now, that's not because there was a lot of changes or, nerfs or buffs to their particular roster, in my opinion, with the exception of the Raise Dead ability. So the Necromancer here has Raise Dead, as well as MANNFRED von Karstein, and it is just absurdly powerful. So they both actually right now have 7 charges. So the fact that I can simply just fly over his army and summon zombies wherever I like is just so powerful, and that really enables the Mortis Engine. The Mortis Engine is an extremely powerful unit if you're able to protect it from missile fire and things like that. And on that same coin, Cryptors are kind of in the same boat. Cryptors against the Wood Elves are a very, very, in many ways, on paper, a risky pick because they're vulnerable to fire damage, which means that the Glade Guards can really just cut them to pieces considering they're large and easy targets. But if you're not able to, they're really going to wreak havoc on the Treekin. They're also pretty weak against Eternal Guard, so on that same coin, they're still a bit of a risky pick. But still, with the fact that I can just spam summon zombies with MANNFRED as well as the Necromancer, I can just shut down any missile units. And I think it might need a little bit of tuning. Personally, I feel like it's way too strong because it essentially just shuts down an entire type of unit. I played a lot of games as dwarves, different factions like that, and there's not much you can do when they're just spam summoning, and it kind of forces you to play more of an infantry style, Death Star style build. And again, I feel like that's a little bit inhibiting to the multiplayer gameplay. But regardless, as far as my army composition goes, I have Skeleton Warriors in the front line, pretty decent here, and they trade okay with Eternal Guards for how cheap they are. They actually have 26 weapon strength, very low melee attack, so they don't make the best contact, but I like them in the front line as fodder. In the secondary line, I have Grave Guards. Now, Grave Guards are pretty good against Wood Elves. They have Silver Shields, which is very good against missile threats, and they trade extremely well with Eternal Guards. Though Eternal Guards with Earthblood and other healing capabilities can hold against them pretty well, these guys are pretty good against the Wood Elves in that respect. I also do have a front line of them across the board. Stearnsmen here, very, very good choice. The Stearnsmen are pretty much an auto-include in every game. Even if, you're playing against a faction where they're not particularly good, I think their regeneration and their stats are just too good to pass up on. Kind of like the Sons of Sigmar, in my opinion. I do have a Mortis Engine back here, and like I mentioned earlier, Mortis Engine is a very risky pick. It's vulnerable to fire. Glade Guards can obviously punish this thing, but if you're very on top of just spam summoning zombies with MANNFRED and whatever, the Necromancer, it's going to be very hard for the Wood Elves to focus because they're going to be constantly having to micro against the zombies. I think they should at least put a cooldown on it because you can literally summon zombies, and then a few seconds later you can summon another wave, which is it's very smothering to missile units. So the Mortis Engine, for the most part, it's going to be hard for my opponent to get his paws on it. I do have 2 White Kings in the flanks, 2 Cryptors in the back, and that's pretty much it for my army. So my opponent, he does have Treekin here. I like them here. They have physical resistance, which is quite good. Their combat stats aren't the best, only having 26 melee attack, but still that physical resistance in conjunction with their armor, it's going to be very, very hard to cut through these guys for Eternal Guards. So I'm essentially going to have to get the Cryptors on them, or I'm just going to have to play the attrition game and drain them with the Mortis Engines. He does have a Spellsinger with the Lure of Life, a very, very good choice there. And he has a pretty nice combination of Wildwood Rangers mixed in with Eternal Guards, which are very good. Wildwood Rangers, they hit like trucks, and they have an anti-large bonus. So the Vampire Counts, whether it be Vargulfs or Cryptors or any of my Heroic Lords, these guys will do well against all of those. And I really like this pick here. So he does have the Spears here. He does have a Treeman here. The Terror isn't going to be, as pertinent, so it's a bit of a wasted mechanic in that respect. But the Treeman still isn't bad. He can get in that front line and kind of play that Death Star game pretty well, and he's going to lay an absolute smackdown on some of my frontliners. But if the Cryptors do get their claws on him, it's going to be very, very hard for it to survive with the armor piercing and the poison and all those things like that. But still, having these large units gives them some flexibility, and I like the tag team between the Treeman and Durthu here. Durthu does have the Sword of Daith for the AoE, which isn't bad against low-tier zombies and units like that. And then he also does have Flock of Doom, which is probably one of the best abilities against the Vampire Counts as a whole. Back here, he has another group of Eternal Guard, another group of Wildwood Rangers, and 2 Wild Riders. So the Wild Riders are a bit interesting here. I'm actually eager to, I did see how they performed, but, I was at the time quite eager to see how they performed, as they do have very high weapon strength, and against Cryptors, they'll do pretty well. Also, considering the zombie spam, if he uses them perhaps in cleanup duty to just ride those guys down, that won't be terrible either. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this game started. And just something I noted that he didn't bring any missile units, so he's obviously seems very keen on the fact that the zombie summons do shut down Blade Guards and other units like that very aggressively. So it appears he is playing a bit of a Death Star build, which I'm definitely a fan of. The only thing I might have changed is I don't know if I'd like the Wild Riders here. Maybe, does he have any Waystalkers? That's something that seems to be missing. But again, the Waystalkers, you can summon zombies on them, but I still think the Arrows of Kurnus are very good. And if he's able to hide a Waystalker up here on the hill and then shoot at my Mortis Engine, that could have been good value for him. So he gets a nice Flock of Doom, my Skeleton Warriors, and it does a bit of work for sure. So the Skeleton Warriors are just going to run in and absorb these Treekin, which is totally fine. That's certainly their role, and they haven't even taken any casualties yet. The Mortis Engine back here is providing healing, and then you can see the Cryptors come up, and they're going to start laying a smackdown on these trees, which is pretty good. My opponent does retaliate by bringing his spears in, but you can see the Wildwood Rangers were getting ready to engage, and I actually just summoned some zombies on them to delay them in the front line, and it's just so powerful. I mean, this one summon of zombies is literally just occupying a group of Wild Riders and his most elite infantry. So I did the same thing over here, but my opponent did micro pretty well. He actually detached them, but still, the fact that I'm able to distract them and keep them away from these crucial points in the battle is quite good. So on the back line, he does get his Wild Riders back here, and it looks like he's going to get a nice flank. But then MANNFRED has a little something to say about it. He's simply going to summon another group of zombies, which is going to be very obstructive. And I do have the White Kings here, and you can see they kind of get caught up on the zombies here. They're knocking some, but still they get congested and tied down. And then MANNFRED and the White Kings are going to come in, and they should do pretty well in that respect. So having the two White Kings obviously brings a lot of great utility. Even though they can't carry potions anymore, I think it's quite good. So over here, the Mortis Engine is in pretty good shape. You can see the trees are trying to get their paws on it. You can see Durthu is in here, as well as the Cryptors, and the Wild Riders are getting a nice flank, but they're starting to take some casualties over here, especially this group. They're going to start getting worn down fast, and I make sure to summon another group of zombies just to further trap them. Every kind of additional group you summon just traps them even further. You can see they're shaken, they're taking serious casualties now, and the Mortis Engine drain is starting to get pretty significant. But my opponent is doing pretty well with Durthu, kind of just riding through and laying the smackdown on my Mortis Engine. So at this point, I turn the Mortis Engine around, use Invocation of the Heck, and I start kind of pathing it out. But it's kind of obstructed here. My opponent doing a very nice job with these Wild Riders in the back, pinning it in. And he also uses a nice Flock of Doom, which is hitting in the front line pretty hard. In the infantry corps, it's going pretty well. The Eternal Guards are kind of facing off with these Cryptors. Not Cryptors, the Grave Guard. There's so many guards and all kinds of things in this battle. It's getting kind of confusing. But the Grave Guard and the Eternal Guard are fighting. And let's go ahead and look at the trades. They're at 64 models to the 77 of the Grave Guard. So the Grave Guard definitely also have higher melee defense, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 36 to, actually no, with the buffed right here, it's actually higher, even though they don't have shields. So pretty good stuff here, but the trade is going pretty well for me, I would say, despite the Flock of Doom. So definitely not upset about that. So MANNFRED back here is just kind of flying around and summoning zombies. I summon the back line right here, which is very, very good. It causes a massive morale hit. You can see they were actually steady a moment ago. Then they just tanked down the Shaken, and they cause fear, and it triggers the rear charge bonus, and it's just all around very good. And also it helps to saturate these Wildwood Rangers a little bit. So the Mortis Engine is just kind of playing the Benny Hill theme and riding around right now and doing pretty good. He does have these Wild Riders coming back in, so the Mortis Engine is going to take a little bit of damage, but you know it's unarmored also, so these Wild Riders actually can't get in there with their high weapon strength. So right now I'm basically just kind of riding it around, trying to avoid Durthu the best I can. You can see all the Cryptors here have kind of chased him down. They've poisoned him. His speed has been brought pretty low. It's actually 28 right now. And also I summoned another group of zombies. It's pretty much infinite. Like it's actually hard to summon all the zombies in the course of one battle, and you can get away with using MANNFRED or any of those lords as well as a necromancer and using all of those zombie summons. It kind of works out pretty perfectly in terms of wins and magic. So the Mortis Engine just continuing to ride around, and it's not near its healing cap quite yet, so it's getting there, continuing to heal itself, and it's also a very, very good counter to the Flock of Doom, because the Flock of Doom does kind of a small whittling damage on a large number of models, so the Mortis Engine is a pretty good answer for kind of dealing with that. So the Cryptors in here are just laying an absolute smackdown on Durthu. The armor piercing is pretty good. MANNFRED, I'm being very conservative with him because the vampire counts are very susceptible to crumbling, and leadership, as most of their units do have low leadership, so I was kind of keeping him in the air and just using him to dive when it was optimal. So you can see these Wildwood Rangers are trying to catch this Mortis Engine, but it's pretty darn fast. I mean, the Mortis Engine itself, it actually has 50 move speed, and these guys have 35, so it's going to be able to outmaneuver them. So I just simply run it through a group of these Graveguard here, and I'm going to kind of come and loop it up and around. So let's go ahead. I know some of you guys like some slow motion in the battle, so you can see these Cryptors just roaring and excitement in the front line. The Treekin are fighting some of these guys, and it's not a terrible situation for my opponent, as the Treekin here, they're not going to make a huge dent in my forces, but they're certainly going to hold the line and keep this battle going for quite some time. You can see the Tree Men right here. They're such cool looking units. I definitely like the kind of green aesthetics on them and the glowing eyes and everything. They have very cool attack animations as well. So the Cryptors here continuing to work on Durthu, who's having a hard time getting away. Also, some of my Eternal Guards were able to win on this flank and drive off the Eternal Guard. I gotta get that down. The Grave Guard and Eternal Guards were able to fight over there, and my Grave Guard were able to win out. You can see MANNFRED now lands, smelling blood in the water. Unfortunately, Durthu does have Earth Blood, but still, the Mortis Engine and MANNFRED, as well as his White King, should be able to finish him off relatively shortly. So on the front line, just look at the zombie spam. I mean, it's pretty absurd, and I most definitely think it needs a nerf because it's so hard to deal with. I mean, the zombies are surrounding these guys. It's a massive leadership hit, and though they only have 18 weapon strength, that still adds up against low armored units when you just can spam summon them non-stop. And it's so easy to surround these infantry and definitely just, make them waver and out pretty quickly there. Durthu is indeed slain over here by the Mortis Engine and White King and MANNFRED. Right now, he just has his Tree Man, which is pretty low itself. But the trees, of course, a very resilient unit. Definitely like them here. They're putting up a good fight, but with their stats, they're not going to be able to do much against this. Stearnsman and Graveguard, especially when there's a Mortis nearby. So at this point, they all route off, and that is all she wrote. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Definitely, you know, a good example of the strength of the zombie spam. I mean, even if they don't bring missile units, it's just such a good battlefield, you know, tool. If they have groups of, you know, of high elite infantry like hammers or, you know, anything hard-hitting, armor-piercing units, you can simply lock them down for a good 20 to 30 seconds with, you know, a single zombie spam. And then if they get past it, you just summon another one. If they're bringing Cav in your flank, don't worry about it. You don't need to bring Cav. You can simply just summon zombies in front of them. It's just very, very strong. And I think maybe a small timer, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 seconds would be pretty nice, or maybe just reduce the number of charges so it's a very strong thing initially, but late game, you know, it kind of is something that dwindles in regards to its power. So just my 2 cents, guys. I'd love to hear your comments below with your experiences, but I feel like vampire accounts are definitely top tier right now with the current kind of set of tools. I've had some success against them as Empire. With Empire, you know, you'll get, you know, a flying goon squad. You're able to snipe out their lord very aggressively. Because a lot of people will bring the Red Duke or MANNFRED or other flying lords. I haven't been seeing as much Vlad. And if you can just fly in there and pound him with like Karl Franz and 2 Empire jet captains, you know, I think that works pretty well. And then you're able to kind of snipe out his Necromancer from there with Karl and the goon squad. There's a few other factions that can do pretty well also. I had some success with Beastmen, but Beastmen, of course, very susceptible to fear, so summoning zombies behind their infantry is quite good. But anyways, as far as my opponent troops goes, those Wild Riders, a lot of their kills are inflated, so it's very hard to tell the actual efficacy of how they did. But as far as my troops go, Graveguard performed pretty well. You know, the Stearnsmen, also can't complain about those. And the Cryptors did a pretty good job taking out Dirthu and the other folks like that. Because in this particular game, my opponent is going to be forced to go after the Mortis Engine, because if he doesn't, the attrition is just going to wear him down. So then it kind of exposes him to the Cryptors and things like that. But regardless, very well played to my opponent. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Vampire cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.